Pretty much the only house in the middle of square on the south side of the road.
You sell it from your house.
What's that?
You sell it from your house.
No, we sell them. I can't remember the address. But it's on New State Road. You take New State Road, once you cross the railroad track in Boutonville, yeah, it's like half a mile. Up on the left, big sign in front says Sweet and Orchard. It's on New State. So go through Boutonville, that's the railroad track. It's not even a town, really. Half mile on the left. We'll start having signs up.
And that was the best thing. And the end of May. And we went on Sherry Thomas. Sherry Thomas, she and her husband went down there. And Grant's son Jeff. And Jeff happened to fly down, so he came to speak to us. Now, Darren no, he didn't go.
Okay, John.
Stay out of the water. About like you.
Yeah. We had 4.8 inches.
Yesterday. Yeah. How much did you have earlier?
Remember a couple of inches. Mark was handing out, and he said 6 something since he left.
We've had over 8 in the last week. Monday we had an inch in the morning. In the afternoon we had another inch in less than a half hour. And we had another inch.
The only thing I can say about it was it came right down. When they wind with it, nothing like it being wet that long. I think we're going to the yellow squash is already starting to die. If I top or drip rods, it starts.
Notice that out in the micro.
Do you have any place in the field for a lot of runs? So it just spreads from there. It's supposed to be dry. And you didn't take that. It was really pretty. It took me more pictures.
Now it doesn't look good. I was by there yesterday and I'm going, oh, this doesn't look good. Good the other night.
4.8.
I heard up south, I really got that. We had just shy of 3.
Once you get over 3, it doesn't really matter, right?
Well, it's washed away anyway. Because after that point, none of it percolated through. They explain it in terms of coffee. You can only pour it so fast, and only some of it goes into the ground, and after that it just runs off. So probably even before 3, you lost that part of it anyway.
Well, it starts running off.
Yeah, it doesn't gain. I had 2, and I have an official wind gauge.
I think everything's handled pretty good. The one thing I love, I can say good about this is it came straight down. There was no wind with it. Right. If I'd have had a lot of wind, those blackberries would go some low. I mean, we're having to put 2x4s on every section. We put 3. We got $3,000 in the 2x4s on just the property.
Today, I don't mind many.
I know, that's true.
They didn't really have any clean USB sticks. That's it. Yeah, no kidding. Well, I don't know.
Here, if you need some drawers, I can do that.
Can you?
Good afternoon, everybody. It's 4 o'clock, and as a pastor, I have realized it's about as important to get started on time as it is to get stopped on time. Amen. Yeah, it's true. I know Pastor Brian is not here with us. He's traveling with grandchildren. I guess he's on his way to Chattanooga, so I hear. So we will pray for safe travels for him. So may we open, please, in prayer. Lord, thank you for bringing us together in this beautiful facility, and help us to always be following your will as we work to please you. Thank you for the tremendous turnout here this afternoon. May we all be transparent and straightforward in our comments, and we look forward to the questions that I know we will get. We pray all things in the name of Jesus, the risen Christ. Amen. Amen. So, just like my sermons on Sunday, I never know for sure exactly what I'm going to say until the time comes, because it it generally helps to just empty out when we're filled with the Spirit. So what I want to do is read you a letter. This is a letter that was written to the 2nd Street Methodist Episcopal Church before it became Grace United Methodist Church in Zanesville, Ohio. The time has come for us to prove our faith by our works in the matter of our new church. Next Sunday, the 5th of November, is the day for our offering in the building fund, and it is very essential that all subscriptions should be returned at that time so that the committee may know your will as to expenditure. We have our lot, thanks to the 10th Legion, and we have plans for an edifice which will satisfy all demands of both convenience and beauty. But we have not made any contracts because, first of all, we must know whether you want this plan carried out, and that can alone be indicated by the subscription list. We estimate that, allowing a conservative value to our old church property, $50,000 will be needed in money. First to last, for the completing of the buildings as outlined in the plans already submitted to you. We believe you are deeply interested in the success of our enterprise and will give all you can. We do not presume to dictate the amount anyone should give. Sounds like me talking. But suggest that it will be necessary for us all to give, and to give very liberally. If we subscribe only what we can easily spare of our income, the work can never be accomplished. It requires sacrifice and devotion in large measure. We believe God is leading us out to large things, and loyalty to Him demands deliberate, prayerful, and self-denying offerings. Cards for subscription are enclosed. State the total amount you wish to pay during the 2 years and a half, beginning December 1st, 1905. If you wish to have it divided and credited to various members of the family, so state on the back of the card. If you wish to pay quarterly, draw your pencil through the monthly clause of the subscription card, or if there are to be monthly payments, just the reverse. If you cannot be present next Sunday, please send your card. Let everybody be represented. Let all who can come. Give all you can without reference to anybody else. If you cannot subscribe a large amount, do not hesitate to put down a smaller amount. All will be acceptable to our Master if we do our best. Do not make a partial subscription, expecting another appeal later on. We should plan to give all now. There will be a meeting in the church Saturday evening, November 4th. Can you come? It is for the purpose of answering any question and giving any information your committees may. Let us unite to make this a great occasion for demonstrating our devotion to our enterprise, and may God bless you in this and in all things. On behalf of the Building and Finance Committee, A.M. Courtney, Pastor, Zanesville, Ohio, October 29th, 1905. Let me just tell you, the church got built. It's a beautiful church. It's a beautiful edifice at the corner of 5th and Shinnick. It is now called Grace United Methodist Church. Donna and I are members there, although I am a pastor elsewhere at the church, serving a local church out in the country. Let's do a calculation of what $50,000 in 1905 is worth in 2021. So I got on Google. You can believe everything that Google tells you. And I don't know why people are laughing at that. But it turns out that $50,000 in 1905 at a 3% compounded rate of interest turns out to be $1,550,000. That's not too far off from what we still need to raise, knowing that we have over $500,000 raised already. Folks, it can be done. It's an all-in thing. Every gift is important, and we all have to get behind this to make it work and be very pleasing to our Master. So when I got this letter just last week, I said, this becomes my talk on Sunday evening. And I'm done right now because I am ready to introduce you. Well, you all know her, so I'll just bring her up. Carol, come on up.
Just because people have been asking me about this, but I have a respiratory infection, so I'm just keeping you safe from me. I am just thrilled to see how many of you came. It brings tears to my eyes to know that so many of you wanted to be here, and wanted to be here because you're really interested in what's happening in our church. And thank you, Facebook people who are unable to come but are watching from home. Thank you for showing that the future of this church is a concern of yours. So I am the executive director of the Capital Gains campaign or initiative, and we're calling it Growing God's Way. And you have heard that many times. It's truly an exciting time for us as a church community as we come together to consider how to keep this church alive, to keep this church vibrant, and wholeheartedly contributing to the mission of the Norwalk First United Methodist Church. I know there's some of you seated here today who helped write that mission statement. And that mission statement says, to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. In order to achieve this mission, we need your valuable insights. We need your visions. We need your desire to be involved. We need you. We need you here. We need you to help us decide what the future of this church is going to be. Today you will hear and see projections of a well-thought-out plan to help us make some much-needed improvements to our building. This plan has been years in the making, and we're asking you to consider this plan with an open mind, with eyes for the future, and with a heart of love. Love for each other and for the people who will step into this building in many years to come. Just remember, well over 100 years ago, we had visionaries for 60 West Main Street who met as we are now. Like us, they had concerns and many questions. Like us, they were filled with great hope for this church's influence in the community for the next 100 years. To me, this is what's exciting, to continue the legacy of making disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. And now I'm really excited to introduce you to a very dynamic team who have the creative plans. They're the men with the plans. So I would like to introduce you to our architect, John Swedrak. He's vice president of AoDK, our architect firm, and also the contractor, Steve Hummel from Simmons Brothers. And take it away, men with a plan.
Make it over to the microphone. They should have been on. Yeah, sorry about that. Anybody help me get it to the right setting here?
IT guy.
Should be.
Tokyo games don't start until Friday, so. Actually, so there we go.
Should be, yeah.
Folks,
Here we go.
Still work off of these.
Don't give them up.
Is it in the first deck? Yeah. Carol, thank you for that introduction, and I gotta tell you, I got goosebumps there when you talk about 100 years ago, the people that were, visionaries in this church. It's exciting. I mean, you all probably know a lot of them that have come and gone, and it's exciting to be here before you guys today. As Carol mentioned, I'm John Swidart with AoDK Architect and Steve Hummel. We've been working together for probably close to 15 years on church projects, the majority of church projects, but on a number of different projects. And we've been here for about a year and a half together, working on this through COVID, through shutdowns, and been on your roof, in your basement, in your attic. We've been all over the place, and so I appreciate being here. Go ahead. So I'm gonna take you through the plans and the plan for the church and what we want to do here. I want to bring you guys up to speed how we got here. So about a year and a half ago, we sat down and went through interviews with teams and listened to the heart of the church. Put together some program ideas of what needs to be done, what would like to be done. We put together some plans. We reviewed and considered those needs of the church, and then design and price a project in there. And that included all kinds of stuff. It includes more than even we're showing you today, but that set a vision. It really did. And we know the steps moving forward beyond this project, which might be somebody else's project, but kind of narrowing and honing it down. We reviewed the scope and the budget, and that last one there with prayerful discernment provided a phased project. And this team worked very hard. We worked closely with the team that was here, struggling through different ideas, where the second elevator was going to go, and just different thoughts about expanding the rotunda and those things. We know there's a lot of work to be done behind the walls and with the HVAC system that's here, and some desires for out in the parking lot and putting a front door or making it more noticeable where the front door is to this building. So we've broken it down into 3 phases. Phase 1, sanctuary renovation. Phase 2 being the rotunda and entry renovations. And phase 3 being the covered drop-off up there. Hopefully you can see those colors. I can't see them too good, but phase 1 in yellow here is the sanctuary. The lavender here with the rotunda and entry renovations. And then all this blue here marks that outside work, which includes a covered drop-off. All of these slides I'll go through. I kind of condensed some of them, and we've got some posters that will leave behind and be up for many months, I'm sure. We can kind of dig into those a little bit further. I'm going to start with the sanctuary, and I'll tell you, there was a project that was done not too long ago that you can't see, right? It's on the roof. Patching the roof and keeping this place dry and clean was important because you can't start from the inside without that. And when we came through a lot of the different project options that we went through, really the heart of it is the sanctuary, and that's the heart of the church here. And I learned about all the different ministries that happen in the education wing. I know you guys have a wonderful choir and a bell choir, and using those gifts to share is really a passion of the church. And along with those gifts to share is a reason for people to come in. And the sanctuary was really the biggest focus that we focused on here. A few things I want to cover as we look at this plan. As you come in through here, there's a patched area right here. That's where that stair and ramp kind of situation works. We're going to be clearing that out and making that a flat transition into the sanctuary. And that was important because you it's hard enough to get up here, right, to the rotunda, and then you got to travel and make your way through. And as you come into the sanctuary, it works out pretty well because we're looking at expanding that stage in the front here and coming in and having stage access right away and ramping down into this sanctuary space. As we come into the sanctuary, I'll tell you, we've been through a lot in there. There's some important pieces and parts, and number one is really the pews that are in there. We've exhausted every pricing option and different category from replacing those pews with brand new to refinishing them to auditorium style flip up chairs We've gone through every route, and what it really came down to, and what we kept hearing from people is those pews mean something to people, and refinishing them is what we want to do with that. Along with refinishing, there's a few tweaks. We know that this is a pretty tight corner when you come into the sanctuary, making it around that column right here. We also know that down on this side, this is a tight corner as well. So we're going to be cutting back those pews when they get refinished and making room to access and get around. And then you see right here, there's a center aisle that we're going to continue. There already is one back here, but as we look at the pews and their condition, especially in that big curve in the middle, it makes it a little difficult to sit in those. People tend to stay away from those anyways, and it allows us an opportunity to freshen that area up and get a center aisle through there. With those pew renovations, we're at 175 approximate occupants for seats in the sanctuary. And I say approximate because pews are a little tricky, right? There's enough room in a pew for me, my wife, the diaper bag, her purse, our coats, and the kids maybe at the end. And that takes up most of that pew. But we know that on Good Friday service, Easter Sunday, Christmas Eve service, we pack shoulder to shoulder, right? Everybody knows that, and we spill candles, wax all over. My kids do. So try not to with those fresh pews, right? But we're trying to maintain a good occupancy load in there, because with refreshing the sanctuary and being able to share the gifts of the church here, inviting people into this as a venue space is really a passion of the church here that we heard. Being able to have different speakers in, musicians, performances, traveling through town, around town, a couple days, a couple nights, kids programs. We do want to make this sanctuary a great venue space, which includes good sound system, good lighting, not just lighting to be able to read the Bible, because it's a little tricky already for that sometimes, but good lighting for theatrical performances. Be able to light up that stage, get the lights where they need to be in terms of the choir, vocal choir, bell choir, but that's going to be important then. Steve, go ahead. So this is just a little rendering here that we put together, and I'm going to get to the stage in just a second, or the platform. It's kind of a tricky word with some churches, but the platform here. But this is a good rendition of what you're seeing with this center aisle, kind of going right up to the center of the altar in the front. This shows a mostly empty stage with the piano and organ, with the pulpit and baptismal on one side, and we've got some other instruments off to the right side there. We're also opening up the wall to the rotunda here. This is showing curtains, but we want to get as much glass as we can. So when you come in the rotunda, you can see inside the church. And when church starts, that curtain will be able to be closed or kept open if there's people still chatting out there and Pastor needs to point and get them in. Make them feel uncomfortable, but we do want that visibility there. You'll also see that we've got two large LED screens here instead of the projection screen that was in the middle. We want to open up that organ, see that piping that's in there, allow for that lighting to shine through and not interact with the projection screen, but have those two screens. The one you're not seeing here is another screen that would be out at the edge of the balcony. So people on the stage could either read the lyrics or the message that they're supposed to be speaking. So that was, again, a function in that sanctuary. These stage plans can be a little tricky, but we worked pretty hard to try to explain with Steve and I what we're pricing, what we're looking at, making sure we've got the right setup for the bell choir and the vocal choir. But what you're seeing here, as I mentioned before, is that you can come in off the rotunda and walk right directly onto the stage. So it's 0-0 in terms of grade. There is a ramp that gets down to the front of the stage and a couple stairs up, and then another stair over on this far left side here. So you have access all the way around the stage there. What we're seeing in this area, and all these are bodies here, okay? So this is the permanent location for the bell choir. We went through all different kinds of studies on retractable bell choir area, removable, manual. We've studied it a lot. One of the important things we wanted to do is have the bell choir have the opportunity to practice throughout the week, not have to tear down, set up, and have a place ready to go for Sundays. And knowing that they have the sanctuary to practice in, they can keep their equipment down low, but also store any equipment or chairs back in this closet space. That was important to have a permanent home. It still leaves a good large space right here, the stage area, that would still be open for any performances or just if it needs to be cleared out. We got the piano and the organ, as I mentioned in that image, some instruments, keyboard, drums, guitar, and this pulpit can kind of move wherever, baptismal, and then the altar down low. Okay. In this slide, you're seeing 30 vocal choir chairs. These would be risers here that would be manually pulled out, and we would have the vocal choir be able to be right in front of the bell choir, but down a little bit lower. So each one of these tiers all the way up and keeps going. So this top row of bell choir could technically be standing and seeing over top of everyone, and then likewise as we go down. Okay? This would be a manual riser, retractable risers, and then the chairs would be able to be stored back in here, or if they needed to go on a cart and go out into the rotunda or somewhere else, we've got that zero access right here, just great, so we can just take them right out, put them on the cart and take them out. These next couple images kind of show this a little bit better. This isn't the exact balcony view, but it's pretty close. Maybe you're kind of dangling, floating right under the lighting here. But as you can see, the glass out to the rotunda, the ramp coming down, stairs across the front and over on the side, and this big area right here that's open. If that's for drama, interpretive dance, worship dance, there's a lot of different activities and functions that can happen there. This is where that bell choir would be. So you see stairs that would go up to the bell choir, and we've got to get access to these doors back here, especially that door where we'll have some storage back there. And here you can see where the choir then would sit. So those would be movable chairs on risers in here. So that first row was right on the stage, and it would step up from there. So go back one more here. As we're on this slide, I didn't want to skip over discussions about finishes and lighting, but that's a key component of the work in the sanctuary. We know there's sometimes plaster falling off those ceilings and light bulbs that are flickering or out sometimes, and that is nothing short of a construction miracle to get that fixed. Steve has been through pricing and design, and not just design of what's going to go in there. We've been working on that, but actually how it has to be constructed. They'll pretty much be building an entire second floor inside that sanctuary to be able to get up high enough to get to those areas of plaster that need to be repaired, the areas that need to be painted, the light fixtures that need to be taken down and replaced with brand new LED fixtures that Amar won't be changing or trying to figure out how to change the whole time. We also have up inside that dome, that beautiful, beautiful stained glass up there that has some lighting, but really not doing exactly what we wanted to do. We've got lighting up inside that dome to be able to control that, to be able to dim it at certain times. Along with that theatrical lighting, there's really a lot of dynamics that can happen with theatrical lighting. Sometimes you don't know about it and you think, oh, we don't need that lighting. And sometimes you go to places, you say, wow, this place just lit up like I wouldn't imagine. Or the mood changed in here dramatically with dark lights all the way down, and that dome just lit up bright. So we wanted to allow that flexibility and versatility for creative people to be able to use the space in different ways. The finishes in the sanctuary, new carpet on the stage, new carpet in the aisles and down front. We're really excited to dig underneath that carpet that's there and look at those old floors that are in there. Our plan is to refinish the floors underneath the pew areas. So you'll still have good soft acoustics in the walkways, which will take some of that noise out and the echoing and just people walking through the aisles, but bring back that rich flooring that's underneath there. Real quick, this is just an enlarged plan of the AV booth, or actually I should say AVL, because we do have, we've been working with a audio-visual lighting company on packaging together. We really went through a good, better, best option and working through those details on how we're going to have good audio and sound system upgrades to what we have right now in terms of speakers and equipment. Also the lighting in there that I mentioned, and then also the video control. We know that audio and video and lighting have COVID changed everything with that, right? It's a whole new ministry in itself to be able to reach people through social media, and that's important. I know you guys have done a great job with that, and this will continue to support that correctly. I'll jump to phase 2 here, Rotunda and entry renovations. And to be honest, there's not a whole lot to go over through here, but we did want to make sure that from the entry point here through that rotunda, that we were carrying through that updated fresh finishes and lighting. So to have new flooring and new carpet in that front entrance, new lighting through there that ties into the sanctuary work, and then would invite us into that rotunda. Inside the rotunda here, we're looking at removing the cafe area as well. I'll get to that on the next slide, but trying to open that up a little bit more, make it more inviting, a space that you want to just hang out and be in right through there. I mentioned before the flooring work through here on the stairs and the ramp. We also have updates for the lavatories in there over in the corner. They function properly, that's great, but we want to make sure we're freshening up that whole area as well. Inside that cafe is kind of a blown up view here from the stairwell where you walk through. We played around with this corner right here and how structurally stable or what we can do with that, and we're kind of keeping that in place. But we did want to open this up where you're not coming down this hallway by itself through here with the single opening here, but we've got a big opening that spills out. And this is our new cafe space that we have. We need to make it functional. We know you guys do birthday celebrations every month and coffee out there and refreshments. We've got a wall here with a sink and a counter. We've got under counter refrigerators, trash drawers and cabinet space to store things, but really making that space usable so people can come in and set things up and be able to serve and get refreshments. And really the point is to hang out a little bit longer, to have a little bit more fellowship in that rotunda area. We also have here a community table. The idea with this being, as I mentioned, the birthday celebrations, the little luncheons or banquets that happen and can happen in that rotunda space. This is a great space here to set out buffet style, or even just to have coffee and put some more chairs around and have Bible study or Friday morning prayer group or something, and allow some flexibility with that to move around. Lastly, I'll go into phase 3, and that's this blue area out here. This starts with growing this existing entrance a little bit wider to the east and allowing for a new covered drop-off to come around through here. We're relaying out or reworking the parking striping in here, so we have plenty of handicap and guest parking up front here in this area. We're also bringing out that patio space or the paved surface out in front, so you've got a larger area to gather outside, be it for before service, after service on nice days like this, and then also looking to have a little green space. We played around with dedicating that to a future playground, or is that just for the teens to throw a ball around or hang out there? Well, we decided it's green space, and we got some now to work with. We do have a new 8 chiller out here for the HVAC system, and I probably went over that too lightly. I shouldn't have during the sanctuary portion of it, but there's a lot of work that happens with that in terms of getting a really functional system that's gonna work properly for you. There's a lot of pipes above the ceilings. We can't see it, and Simmons brothers and their team has been all over this building to look at those pipes and valves and make sure this is set up for future generations to not have to worry about that stuff, not have to come back later and say, oh, we got to tear stuff out again. It looks really nice, but we got to do that. So we got that new chiller location outside. This is a blow-up view here, as I mentioned, that double wide entry through. We're still going to have a single entrance that comes around and an exit through and circulation for parking, but this would be a wide drive here to be able to drop people off and still get past and through this drop-off area. These dash lines are representing where the canopy would cover, so that covered area. This goes right into the existing entrance that's through here and right up those stairs to the cafe. This is that outdoor patio space, just allowing you with the patio and that green space to do something different. I'm not the one who gets on those teams at our church to cook hot dogs out front and do that and organize water balloon fights for the kids, but that's an area where those kind of things can happen. Vacation Bible School, or I know the different ministries that happen throughout the week here with the education wing. I know for sure this rotunda is going to be used for the different events with the prom event. Excuse me, I can't remember the name of that, but there you go, Nights of Shine, yeah. But I know this will be just a really cool space to be in here. I can picture that red carpet and all that kind of stuff in here. And I'll wrap it up with a couple renderings here from the outside. And as we looked at this outside, and as I walked through, the main thing was to get a main visual front entrance to this building. It's not to say that if you park over there, you're still not going to come in that side door, right? But when people are coming by and they or they're visiting for the first time, or they tell people, I'm having my wedding here. It's a church with a big canopy that faces the southwest in the corner. We want to make this pretty prominent on that entrance side of the building, so that that high canopy, so we can get big vehicles through there, drop off, the drive coming around through, and nicely landscaped right against the building. And this would be that view from kind of across the street. We pull right in, we kind of wrap around, and still have that parking over there. That kind of wraps up the walkthrough of that. I know Growing God's Way is unique to this church, and we see that with a lot of churches, different titles and how they explain what their different campaigns and the projects are doing. I think it was pretty spectacular when we were met with the group and talking about what Growing God's Way means. And really, we talked about what does it come down to the why of this project, and really doing what God wants us to do. And sometimes it's hard to figure that out, especially when you got people saying one thing and numbers here and everything there. And you got to have a quiet heart, prayerful heart, and ask for that wisdom to go in the direction that God wants you to go. And this is what this team and we've been working with over the last year and a half to go to. Okay. It's not always an exciting time, right? Yes.
Well, then how do we start? Well, what's happening with construction costs these days, Steve?
Unfortunately, I suppose anybody that reads the newspapers or watches the news nowadays is seeing the volatility of pretty much anything, even food, restaurants, groceries, etc. Building materials are obviously no exception right now. We have seen material lumber costs increase for 2-by products up to 300%, and sheet good products up to 600 to 700%. We're starting to see some of that soften a little bit in the lumber industry, but unfortunately now everything else. Steel is up about 400% right now. We are getting materials allocated, drywall, finishing products, and unfortunately it's just not a great season for building. And we've had to have these conversations with a lot of different customers and just explain that I started doing some, little math on some different projects and how they were shaking out over the last 6 months. And I think on average, the overall project cost has gone up about 30 to 40%. That's when we're used to seeing 2 to 3%. So it's pretty tough right now. It's not sustainable. It just can't go on forever. Just like the late 70s, early 80s when interest rates were 18 to 22%. People said they'd never come back down below double digits. Mortgages are in the 3% range. So it will come back down. We're not seeing it yet. Again, the lumber's futures are down a little bit. We're not quite seeing it at the retail level, but we're cautiously optimistic that as this project kicks into boots on the ground, that we're going to see a softening in the markets again. So because of that, as the group talks, as your leaders talk, the prices that we have proposed are based on what we priced back in March. We don't even know what kind of escalator to put on this time, but we're prayerfully optimistic that we won't need to put too much contingency in, and that we can continue to maintain costs and look at other ways to construct and fabricate. So that's a brief overview.
So on hand.
Oh, you're talking about refinishing the pews, and do all of them need to be refinished, or you just certain ones? And when you mentioned like 175 people, are you including the upstairs?
I was not. There's about 120 up in that balcony, and again, kind of how it all fits through there. So close to 300 in that range, and we do have included to refinish them all. There was a pew that got refinished not too long ago, which turned out exceptional in terms of the wood refinishing in there. We want to make sure that we're keeping it consistent throughout, so that any fabrics that we revise on there, we'll get to those teams in terms of the colors and everything and selections, but we want to make sure that has a consistency through there. So no matter if you're sitting upstairs or downstairs, you're on the new pews and through there.
Are we losing seats?
We do lose a little bit in the front, expanding that stage. We do lose on that center section through the front, and then that center aisle coming through. We played around with a lot of different things in terms of opening up those aisles a little bit more, making a little bit more room. But what it came down to is that those numbers that we were just talking about, 175 and 120, they feel really comfortable for the space that's in there. So if we're losing 10, 15, it's not too bad in terms of that. I'd be more concerned if we were losing a large chunk. But, really trying to maximize the stage a little bit out further and losing that in the front. And some of those walls in the front, those courtesy walls. Mm-hmm.
Question about the removing all the carpeting, refinishing the hardwood floors. What about the acoustics? Is that going to ruin the acoustics in that place? Better. In the sanctuary?
So that's why we want to keep that under the pews is where that would happen. So we've got the soft cushion of the fabric on the seat. We've got the hard back already. The more people you put in the room, the better the acoustics are, because that absorption happens. So pack those services. Yeah. But I believe there's some photos going around. But at one point, the sanctuary looked a lot different with lighting and flooring and finishes in there. I believe the understanding is at one point it was hardwood floors through there. So we're kind of going through this a little bit on both sides, maintaining the acoustics. I know that from the audio and visual, we work with churches that have the organ where you want a lot of noise and bouncing around. And then you've got the sound guys that are trying to control stuff with other instruments, and it does get tricky. But that's why we were only looking at under the pews to expose that. Yes?
Two things. You talked about the chiller. Will the chiller service the Ed wing? And what about the elevator to the Ed
So, the chiller, do you wanna talk about
Sure,
that?
I can.
What's that? Oh, will the chiller service the education wing?
Yes.
And then also she asked about the elevator
To the
to
wing.
the education.
So we will be replacing the single main chiller that you currently have right now. And as John kind of brought up at the end, it's unfortunately an expense that does need to be addressed right now. Number one, just from the standpoint of the unit's age and functionality, we've talked to Lamar a lot about how he has to go through the process of draining down in the fall, recharging it back in the spring. And he was keeping his fingers crossed this spring that that was going to start back up again. And the question was, could that be another project if we wanted to phase that in before even the sanctuary started? And that was that kind of segues into my material issues, availability. If your chiller went down, we couldn't probably get it for about 16 to 24 weeks, maybe 6 months. It's that bad right now. So I can think to get back into your question, it will service the entire facility. It's going to be an upgraded system, 4-pipe system with glycol, so that it does not, it's more user friendly. So when Lamar decides to hang his keys up and turn this over to somebody else, it's going to be a more push button system, a lot easier to use. Along with that,
Talk about time.
yeah, that's true. John's green space will be a little less noisy, I hope. We are going to screen that, have some landscaping and some fence work around the new chiller. The unit heaters that are in the sanctuary are going to be replaced. Those have started to leak and fail through the years. And then again, combined with that, we're going to address all the piping and valve work that basically is in, around, and behind our new work. So we're going to try and take care of everything from the chiller to the unit heaters, to be honest.
And the elevator?
In terms of the elevator, it's not part of the 3 phases we talked through here. I will tell you, I don't want to get into too much of it, but when we early on drew and designed and priced some different options, we looked at basically 2 locations for this. And one of them was right outside that window in the corner, and actually having an addition onto the building there, that you'd have access off the rotunda into the elevator. The elevator would go up and down and hit the floors of the education wing. We actually priced that out, and it was a fairly expensive option. We looked at option number 2 is we explored an addition through this area, filling in that green space, which is still in, for the future and kind of the thoughts as things go forward. But it was connecting more in the center of that education and off the rotunda. 2, I think, great options that were in there. In terms of that pricing, as I mentioned before, that's where we started and kind of went through. It's not in the 3 phases that we presented here today, but we did explore that very thorough. I personally liked the option right here, although it meant doing something more. But it worked out that it would kind of cut right through the center of that education wing and kind of split out. It does go into, there's a little bathroom in there that would have to be redone, but that was an extensive project that we have explored.
Was that an elevator, excuse me for interrupting, was that just an elevator for the education room?
It was, yeah. Due to, we know that this elevator here can get us anywhere in the rotunda. We do have great access for the education wing, but really nothing to get up through there. Anyone else? Yep.
You mentioned repairs that are necessary in the church, and my question is, will the repairs that will be fixed, are they part of the campaign program, or are the repairs a separate fund that we will have to pay later? Is it all in one, or will you do the repairs first and then do the improvements?
Yeah.
Just wondering.
Well,
Hard
that's a
question.
tricky question.
I
Yeah.
know it is.
The spaces we talked about today,
Yes.
the sanctuary,
Mhm.
with that project being done, that whole area is taken care of. So
Okay,
the
so
idea is to
plaster, everything?
yes,
Okay.
yep, the plaster, the wall covering that's in there, the paint, the front glass along here into into the Rotunda area. Yeah, that is part of the project.
So wherever the improvements are made, the necessary repairs will also be
Yes.
made, but
Yep.
not
Yep.
elsewhere.
Yes. Go ahead.
We talked once about a safety network through the sanctuary education wing, and I didn't see anything brought up on that.
In terms of the control with check-in and things like that.
Yeah, and like watching things happen through the education wing a little bit more with video cameras and entries.
So we did it, the audiovisual consultant that we have on board. We talked about the options of extending cameras and sound out to the education wing and to the rotunda. It's not something specifically that we said there's going to be 6 rooms in there that are going to have something there, but the new system that we have would be able to pipe that out. The education wing, I think at one point we looked at a lot of different refinishing and branding that whole wing, and I think what came out of that is that it can be a project, but it's separate from this one today. Yep.
The renovation of that hallway leading from the entryway back into the rotunda, we need a place for coats. If you're gonna take that wall out,
Yeah.
we have hanging, we're gonna need something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's that area right through here. We've talked about redoing that whole area, and putting new, a code area in that space. We also feel like it's kind of a bottleneck. So that's actually a good question to kind of, for us as a team to say, where would be the appropriate place for that, or how are we gonna do that? Right there. Yes.
Talked about putting glass between the rotunda and the sanctuary. They've got some really nice stained glass windows in there now. What's gonna happen to them?
So I think as a team, we knew about that through there. We have not put them in a specific area for design purposes. A lot of times with churches, we've backlit, we've taken stained glass and backlit them and put them down hallways as like accent pieces, or relocate to a different church. But those pieces in particular have not been talked about, like an opportunity. Where could that go? Could that go in a window upstairs that would be backlit? Could that be on the upper level, on the lower level? So again, a great point to point that out. Yes.
On the same item with new glass, like right now, those can open up, all those windows, because at some Christmas services we've had people out there. Will the new glass open so that
We did go through that as a team. Yeah, the question was about the glass separating, and right now they can be opened, and whether or not they would be able to be opened. So as a team, as we were looking at this, we knew that with the audio-visual upgrades, that we'd be able to get the right sound and visuals out into the rotunda space. And for the most part, we would not be opening those up that often. It doesn't happen that often now. So that glass would actually be fixed in place, or how we have it planned for it.
And that's clear?
Yes. Yep.
There'd be room for a TV in the room then to do projection from the sanctuary?
Yes, in the rotunda area, yeah. With the glass, it might not necessarily need too much projection or video feed of who's on stage, because you're kind of looking almost straight through this way, which will be helpful. But any words or something on the screen or something that needs to go out, that can be done in that rotunda space.
I know you mentioned that with the front entryway, moving some of the handicap parking spaces back further, but how many parking spaces are we gonna lose with that addition?
Off the top of my head, I think there's 4 that we would be. I think there's 8 over here. Yeah, we would be grouping 8 altogether in this location for handicap, and then an area for guest parking in this space. When we played around with moving it from over to here and here, we kind of felt that because we have this straight shot and we have a big, large area to ramp up right into that, and then also be able to use both sides. I know right now you can go in both sides, but it's kind of like you go in the one on the right and make your way over to the elevator if you need it. and then having these access aisles that could walk through, so someone parking here would be basically having that straight shot up through. This area of parking did get reworked through here, so now it's that angled area.
With everything costing so much more, do we have any kind of contingency plan that maybe we want to scale down so that we address the heating and the air conditioning, we address the structural stuff, and maybe scale down on some of the newer things that are really kind of not, they're more remodeling than pre-urban?
I think probably the team, somebody from the team could probably address those specifics in there, but I think being wise with the funds that are there is really important. We didn't want to go into this project saying we need to get that gold leafing back all over the sanctuary because we know that it's more, well, to us we want bodies in that space and we want to be dry and well lit, and those are some of the important steps along the way. I think as we continue through this project, and I think the feedback that we get over the next few weeks and months, I think it'll be important for us to consider that, and the team to hear those questions or concerns, because I know I've seen that in our church building projects in my own church, and well, what were we thinking with that one, guys? Like, did we really need that or not? And so we're trying to do our best in terms of being good stewards of what we have, and thank you for that, pointing that out.
Let me expound on that just a little bit, John, too, because when we started a little more than a year and a half ago, we actually were up almost to a $4 million comprehensive project. So the scaling has really come back to these three phases that John's presenting. But within these three phases, they could be done separately. So the sanctuary phase is the one that's going to address most of the, well, pretty much all plaster, HVAC issues. You know, that's kind of the heart of the phase project right now. So that could be done as a standalone, but obviously things kind of continue to segue and blend together. So these three were kind of the most reasonable put into one big package.
Do you have that price separately or costed out separately?
We do. We had basically done a very lengthy a la carte type pick list for the team that had a lot of different options split out and broken out.
Do you want to go through your binder there that you brought with us?
I can find it, and it may take me a little bit of time, but we do have things separated. Yes.
Well, considering that the sanctuary, you're mainly talking about refinishing pews and cosmetics, that shouldn't require that much lumber and steel, should it? I mean, the stuff you mentioned that's very pricey right now, hopefully that price is going down. So, you know, to do the sanctuary, I guess I'm thinking, would it involve that much wood?
Right, in terms of the actual physical construction and stuff that's happening in there, it's really the stage that is the main area, but you're right that the furnitures and the pews are there, they're getting refurnished, and the lighting. There's a lot of work, as I mentioned, in terms of, I can draw pretty pictures, and Steve gets his crews and they build it and make it look fantastic, and he understands how that works. There's time and labor involved with that.
Yeah, and I guess address that a little, you know, obviously John said trim work, the white oak that is prevalent in the sanctuary is the species that's gone up the most in the trim industry. So it's seen the same increases as the raw lumbers or the rough materials are that we do framing with. Carpet and HVAC equipment, lighting equipment, we're still seeing a lot of increases. I was just using steel numbers, two of the primary examples. So unfortunately, we're seeing it across the board right now. Labor is the only thing that's flat. If we can get guys who still want to work with their hands, that's always a concern. But we don't have any labor increases at essentially about probably 5 to 6 months, because as John said, we would have a full platform that we'd be building, a scaffolding. We would have to remove all the interior finishes, and that includes the pews, that includes anything built in on the stage area. In order to build that scaffold, we would build it up to basically where the base of the columns are, and then we'd kind of do like a wedding cake platform detail on top of that, so we can get personnel all the way up to the top of the rotunda. A lot of intricate plaster work that has to happen up there. Once the plaster's out, obviously we have the electricians and the painters and whatnot. So, you know, after probably 3 months of work in that, then we have to wreck all that out and then begin the refurbishment of putting the pews back in, building the platform and stage area. So it's going to be a tedious process. It takes some time.
I would like you to go over again the carpeting, where it's gonna be in the sanctuary, and what, if you take it all out, do you put something else in besides carpet? Hardwood?
So the hardwood that's underneath the existing carpeting would be what we would refinish. So sanding that down, stripping it, sanding it down, refinishing that. And then the area, I don't know, kind of go back if you could in some slides here, but underneath where the pews would be sitting would be what we call solid surface or wood under there. So the aisles in between, so this would be carpet through there, carpet through this area, all the way around, down this aisle, through there, all the way in the back and down the aisles. So anywhere where there's pews would be that solid surface. The stage would also have carpet. That's what we propose right now. We've done stages, traditional stages with wood. We've done them with carpet. We've done them with bright flooring. We've done them with dark flooring, and you kind of see the different effects on how the churches use those in terms of performances or lighting. Is it reflecting off a light color? Is there too much acoustics, loud acoustics with a solid wood floor, and then we show up and there's carpet squares everywhere on the day they put rugs down, but we do have carpet proposed for up there. Anyone else? Yes.
I've had 5 generations in this church, and I really dreaded this meeting because I don't like change, but I think you've done a fantastic job. We did a church project at our church not too long ago, and we ended up changing pews out for chairs at one point. But it was interesting that I had a couple different families come up to me, and they said, you know, we talked about it at dinner the other night, who would like chairs and who would like pews, and they said all our kids wanted pews. I said, well, why do you want pews? And they're like, well, it's just church. That reminds you of church, and there's a connection. You had 5 generations that have said they need pews and kind of understand that. And it's not always that for some churches, you know, it's always different, but there are certain pieces and parts that we continue to hear through this project that are important and that do have an underlying meaning, even though that's